大家好，我是乐乐法力，欢迎收看这一期的解放胸毛节目。其实我不知道这节目的中文名字是什么，而且我觉得让我来介绍这个节目有点尴尬。但是我们可以先问我这个节目的其实真正的主持人 Angel，你好。
Hi. Hi. Thank you for that fine introduction in Mandarin. My name is Angel Tang, and welcome to another episode of Liberated Panda. We have a very special guest for us today. His name is Lila Farley, and I'm sure a lot of our viewers already know him. He's a man of many trades, but I will let him explain his background, how he became well versed in China, like his anything else that he would like to tell us about his background.
First of all, thinking that your audience already probably knows who I am, I'm flattered that you would even think that. I think that's probably not the case. But I am a 29-year-old American man that has studied Chinese since I was about 15, maybe 16, even though there was a few years in between there where I wasn't a very studious student. But I've studied Chinese for a very long time, especially in Beijing and in China. I spent multiple years there at Nanjing University, at Shanghai's Eastern Normal University, but the longest time I spent in China was actually at the Central Academy of Drama in Beijing, where I studied acting and the art of television hosting and broadcast, which might sound like a silly major to us Westerners, but in Chinese is a very serious major where students learn to speak Chinese in a way where you can host a variety show or you can be a newscast or news anchor, which even, to us, it might seem kind of silly, but the Chinese language is just that difficult. The controlling your cadence as well as your breath is all something that people put a lot of years of work into before they can be professional orators. And that's what that major entails a lot of, which requires a lot of like tongue twister practices, as well as practicing reciting poetry recitation and stuff like that. So that's why, I can do things like ba ba biao bing ba mei po pao bing bing pai bei bian pao, biao bing pa peng pao bing pao, biao bing pa peng pao bing pao, biao bing pa peng pao bing pao. Oh, I think I forgot that tongue twister actually, but that helped me learn how to rap in Mandarin because I've also played the drums since I was a young boy growing up in Texas. And I've always loved rap and music in general. And once I got deeper and deeper into Chinese, I started casually learning raps. And here we are 5 years later. I've made 4 or 5 songs, which I've also all written, produced, and directed and edited the videos of, which is all on my channel.
哦，你是中国人吗？哇，你住在这儿附近吗？哇，巧了，我也住这一片啊，要不咱们。One, two. Yeah. Check it. This love started in Nanjing with China's hottest body. An older woman dancing, saying, "How Mr. Valley?" Lean with thick hips, provocative lips. Only problem is, chick loves the Communist Party. She asked me what I think about Tiananmen Square. I play stupid, saying I sure don't think I've ever been there. Hey, she says I'm talking about the tanks, shoot their lives against their citizens. Was our government fair? The battle begins between brain and my dick. Like, oh shit, did we say to this check? Of course, brain and boys and hates what they did, but my dick's got that itch to slay in her. Could have been sympathy, time to wrap this talk right now. He says it's not like any of us will ever find out the body count. Students on it with the lights out. Here she moves the exit with that booty moving so nice now.
I can't stop the feelings that I'm growing to you. Can't break free from my need to see you losing this fight for love to greed. What is between you and me, baby? Even though I know that our future's not forever, we'll never be together. Please set me free now. Oh, set me free now. Oh, set me free.
Got the just together at 8, and we back in the rat race. Would've never thought that night would be our last day. Down draft after draft, up white out of gas. that wash away the taste. Let fireman's mad chase. What's the key behind a young lad's energy? Mickey takes lead for a stream of bad memory. Drive to survive, may carry the beat, but an overindulged soul only most sad melody. Lessons within bodily obsession, affection for acceptance or rejection. Fight against attention for physical connection, and you gon' breathe the need for a priest of confession. Check it. She said, what about COVID? Boy, don't you know the whole thing's so bogus? Set over with American soldiers frozen. I sit thinking, whoa.
Which is all on my channel. Other than that, I also do stand-up comedy, even though I'm not very funny.
No, I would beg to differ. And we definitely want to get to all of that, everything you're talking about in your videos later. There's one that we, like you especially mentioned to me that I really enjoyed watching, which was Sittler.
Schittler.
Schittler. So I can't wait to talk about that in a little bit.
Are you a talentless loser with low self-esteem? Are you unemployed but not motivated enough to find a real job? Are you a white guy from an English-speaking country? If so, then Schittler Management is looking for you. We're recruiting international talent to join our growing team of foreign celebrities here in China. I know what you're thinking. China? I don't know anything about China. Well, it's like we say here at Schittler Management, no knowledge, no problem.
No knowledge, no problem. Schittler!
Sponsored by the Confucius Institute. You see, here at Schittler Management, we've developed a groundbreaking piece of technology to connect you directly with one of our brand experts. All you gotta do is call this number here and sign up for our Harmony program. Once we receive your signature, plus a measly $9.99 shipping fee, you'll receive one of our Harmony earpieces. Just tap the power button and voila! You'll be connected with one of our brand experts, someone to help coach you from zero. Through their coaching, anyone, and I mean anyone, can become China famous.
Honestly, I was skeptical about the whole thing to begin with. I don't speak Chinese, I don't know anything about Chinese history or Chinese culture, but it didn't matter. All you do is you take out your phone, push record, and repeat what the brand expert tells you. I've been with Schittler Management for a couple of years now. When I first started, the Harmony earpiece was great, but once they introduced the Harmony Egg, oh man, that's when things really took off. I was speaking at conferences, guest appearing on shows, and even doing my own live streams.
That's right. Here at Schittler Management, we're always looking for ways to improve. That means helping you succeed. So if you call within the next 10 minutes, you'll receive your very own Harmony Egg. A testament to the hard work of our R&D department, the Harmony Egg is designed to develop your ability to speak off script. Here's how it works. The talent will place the Harmony Egg deep inside their anus until it locks into the sphincter. Once the egg connects to one of our 5G satellites, you'll feel a slight warming sensation, a reward for your successful installation. Using state-of-the-art rectal stimulus technology, the Harmony Egg conditions you to promote harmony without the help of our brand experts. We'll show you.
Yeah, sure.
Do you guys think they look alike? Winnie the Pooh and Chinese dictator Xi Jinping? Yeah, they definitely don't. The egg is currently rewarding MC Lur for his harmonious words, but look what happens when he's taken off guard by a stranger's remarks.
I don't know, I mean, the cheeks look pretty similar.
Yeah, I mean, I guess they kind of look. While this tender form of therapy is completely optional, here at Schittler Management, we encourage all of our young talent to begin as soon as possible. You see, in Chinese, there's a saying that goes, 授人以鱼,不如授人以渔. While the Harmony earpiece might give you a fish, the Harmony Egg teaches you how to fish. Just ask our biggest star.
So what motivated you to go to China, of all places?
Well, in the beginning, it was just because to go to China was simply because I just thought it would be cool to travel, and my parents were really the ones who were like, yeah, our kids should go and see more of the world. I was a young 15-year-old boy between my freshman and sophomore year of high school, first and second year in high school, for those of you that aren't familiar with the American education system. And I, just traveled. It was a 2-month program. One of the months was living in the countryside of China, in Guilin, which is in the southern central part of China. It's beautiful, and it's like the only place that reminds me kind of a Los Angeles type temperature. It's just gorgeous, and the countryside was terrific for me because I actually grew up in a relatively rural area of Texas, and then also a super rural area of Vermont. So stuff like shitting in a hole or sleeping on a rock hard bed was very easy for me. I really enjoyed it. My other classmates had a really rough time. After that, I came back from China, and I really wanted to get better at the language. At that time, basically, I can only say like, ni hao, and, 厕所在哪里? So so then I really started to learn the language. And once I started to get better at the language, I went again to China when I was 19. I went to Shanghai and did an internship for like 4 months. And during that time, 2009, China was really peaking, I guess you could say, but it was really looking like it was going to be the next big thing in the world. I'm sure most of us will probably remember a time where like that, where people were thinking, everyone was under the impression that China was going to be the next big country. And that was before Xi Jinping came to power and kind of messed everything up.
Right.
But yeah, then once I got better and better at Chinese, the reason why I kept wanting to learn Chinese was because I just liked the language more and more. And I loved the people too. You know, I had a great time in China with Chinese people too. They were very nice and very welcoming.
Right. And I think it's so important to separate the CCP from the Chinese people, right? Especially
Well, the CCP wouldn't like that. They don't like that. They want you to put them all together.
Right. And so do you get the sense from living in China all these years that like people feel differently?
Yeah, definitely. One thing that you can notice is there's less confidence. So in my mind, confidence comes from being able to take criticism and kind of bounce it off or even accept it and use it to grow. And when I was first in China, you know, I could have like very cool-headed, calm, collective debates with classmates about the validity or the advantages of a one-party system like China has versus a multiple-party system. And they could have that discussion with you, including professors. You could have it in class without anybody getting all butthurt and going crazy. Whereas now, if you did it, people would, first of all, run away from you because they would be scared to even like have that conversation be brought up when they're like there, because they could get in trouble for it.
Right.
So yeah, you can see it definitely on the micro level. You can really see the influence.
To me, it's almost kind of reminiscent of American politics now, about how, you know, if you're a Republican and you don't follow the party line exactly, you get kind of castrated to the side and vilified and get death threats and stuff like that. So I almost see like a little bit of a parallel there, though I know China's infinitely worse. I just
because you'll be arrested. I mean, in America, you could get some people to send you mean Twitter messages, and like you could maybe lose your job on that Mandalorian show. But in China, you could literally be arrested and sent to a labor camp.
Oh, absolutely. Yes. Well, like my parents and I escaped communist China, and we're here in political asylum. So we know too well, you know,
yeah, definitely
of the CCP. So
for sure.
So can you tell us about like the evolution of your feeling towards China and what motivated those changes, and, you know, like what, like the time frame as well? I know you mentioned Xi Jinping, but can you take us from the beginning to now?
Well, you know, 2006 all the way up until 2015, I was under the impression, as well as everybody around me, you know, you could really learn a lot from the reaction that American Westerners had to me learning Chinese. You know, they when I was a high school student and even a young college student, when my dad, who's a businessman, and like any of his fellow employees would hear that I'm learning Chinese, they'd be like, "Oh, dude, such a smart move. China's the future, man. You're gonna make tons of money. Good move, dude." Yeah. And then now, you know, everybody's like, "Dude, what's going on in Hong Kong? What's going on in Xinjiang? Like, what's a Uyghur?" And you could tell a lot in just their reaction. But when Xi Jinping came to power, you know, if you look at the public discourse or discourse coming out of Communist Party officials, for example, the premier, who's still the premier, Li Keqiang, he was even advocating for China to go through another wave of privatization, similar to one they went to in the early 1990s that Deng Xiaoping was able to do because he had so much power. He had centralized so much power. He was the rare benevolent dictator that centralized power so that he could make the country better, because when you privatize in China, that's going to lead to a lot of state-owned enterprises laying off their employees. If you lay off employees, a lot of them are typically aged 40 to 55 men, which if you look in history, you know, that's usually an age group that can really cause some instability in the eyes of, I guess you could say, the Communist Party. They would say it would cause instability. So it's always dangerous. However, you have to have that. You have to privatize every once in a while, at least in the Communist Party's view, because the state-owned enterprises are like tumors on the economy and just suck up resources and then don't efficiently use them. Especially when you compare with how much of the population is employed by private enterprise. Now, Li Keqiang has got a PhD in economics. Friggin' Xi Jinping, the people are like, well, he went to Tsinghua, and Tsinghua is like the Harvard of China, which is a really shallow comparison. But also, if you look into the details of that, he went to Tsinghua in 1978, I believe, which is basically 2 years after the Cultural Revolution ended. So Tsinghua was nothing. I mean, it was not at all a reputable institution, and he got in because he has guanxi. He has the blood relationship, which is what Xi Jinping is. He's a dumb, spoiled idiot that thinks he's smart. He's a big, strong man that thinks he's smart, which your viewers might be thinking, hey, I also know of a spoiled, dumb idiot that thinks he's smart. Oh yeah, Donald Trump. So that's really when Xi Jinping came to power. I saw what he was doing with the booksellers in Hong Kong in 2015. That was the first time where I really started to be like, oh God, this guy might be an issue, because all the presidents before him took Hong Kong's basic law very seriously. They were like, we need to make sure we preserve that, because I mean, if you want to look at it from their point of view, that's how they get their wealth abroad. A lot of them do it through Hong Kong. And so ruining Hong Kong as a financial center of the world would be something that only a butt-fucking moron would do. And Xi Jinping is that moron. And then after that, it was a handful of things, from arbitrarily arresting Canadian citizens, and then the Hong Kong protests. I mean, take a pick.
So considering all of that and your low opinion of Xi Jinping, and you're not alone in that, obviously. Right, I've heard your sentiment echoed in many intellectual circles. Given all of that, and just to play devil's advocate, because I'm absolutely not a supporter of Xi Jinping or the CCP. Just to play the devil's advocate, though, do you think that his pursuing this whole global initiative, right, of his whole the Road and Belt project, right, made in China 2025? How he's, and then, just yesterday I was reading an article about how, Joe Biden's leading a coalition of democratic nations to form an alliance against China. And then now China is trying to do the same thing, but an alliance of autocrats against the Western civilization. So and then also at the same time, extorting all these international companies like Australia, right? And the UK, and just saying, we're not going to import from you anymore, economic coercion. All of that, I want to say that it's smart, right? It's ruthless, but in a way, it's also smart. It's horrible. But
it's really stupid, to be honest with you, because he's destroying the Chinese economy. I mean, regardless of what the numbers might say that China makes up and fabricates, regardless of what they say, let's not forget, China had a horrible pig Ebola virus decimating its pig population right before coronavirus hit, right before they had the coronavirus. And China is so reliant on pork that they have pork reserves, because that is really important to maintaining stability. And other than that, trade war and all these other things are going to, you got a real estate bubble. I mean, the Chinese economy is extremely unhealthy. They're burning through foreign currency reserves to keep their currency afloat. And you see that they're desperate for foreign currency by trying to lower the barriers to entry to invest in the Shanghai stock market, which is just not going to work, especially as they get more and more wolf warrior. So they get more and more loud and obnoxious with their wolf warrior mentality. Countries and companies are not going to invest in China because they're really using up all the goodwill that was accrued since the open door policy started in 1978. And once that happens, eventually we're going to see some sort of collapse, or it's not going to be in 1 second, that one, I forget his name, but it's not going to be just collapse overnight, but there are going to be bad things that happen internally, and us as observers, we can only see certain signs and we can try and read the tea leaves. But what you can always look at is look at the dialogue between Li Keqiang, the premier, and Xi Jinping, for example. You know, Li Keqiang, PhD in economics, the dude turned around, I think it was the Anhui province in China, which is, you know, I don't want to offend anybody if you're from Anhui, but it's not it's like the Missouri of China. And he turned this province around into an economic powerhouse. And then you got Xi Jinping, who has really just, they call him Hong Er Dai, the second red generations, who's gotten a lot of his positions through just relationships and his dad, like his bloodline.
Right.
So he has surrounded himself with a bunch of people that are like yes men. They're like, dude, you're doing great, and they're too afraid to tell him anything true.
Right.
But Li Keqiang, maybe a half a year ago, said that there's still 600 million Chinese people that are living on 1,000 yuan a month, 1,000 yuan, which is like $130. It's like nothing.
Right.
But then Xi Jinping, because he set a standard a long time ago that by 2020, I believe he said, that all of China would enter into Xiaokang, which is like everybody would be, you'd have clothes to wear, your belly would be full, you wouldn't be poor anymore.
Lifted out of poverty.
Right, and they just announced that. There was like a big ceremony, like celebrating
huge.
Xi Jinping for getting
Yeah.
everybody. But 6 months ago, Li Keqiang said that. So you know that everything that they're putting out is absolutely bullshit. It's absolute bullshit. So when they try and go into a trade war with, or they try and put trade embargoes with Australia, and they meet with American diplomats in Alaska and make such a fool out of themselves, it is just a mafia of dumbasses that are just putting on a show for the big boss, because the big boss is actually the dumbest of all the asses. And so they're just putting on a show for him. And when they put on a show like that, what they're doing is sacrificing the health of the Chinese economy. And unfortunately, the truth is the first people who will suffer, and the people who will suffer the most, are not the Communist Party. They are getting all their wealth out of China. All their kids are out of China. It'll be Chinese people. It'll be Chinese people. They will be the ones who will suffer the most and will suffer first.
So where do you see all of this going right now? Like, what do you think the end game is for Xi Jinping, right?
Well, it's such a good question, and it's such a difficult question to answer. Anybody that thinks it's like, oh, dude, it's definitely going to be this, is a jackass. It's really tough to understand what's going on with the Communist Party because it's so opaque. So we just really have to do our best with what we got. I think that Xi Jinping getting assassinated by someone like from within the party is not completely crazy.
Possible.
I mean,
Very
it is
possible.
definitely possible because you're stepping on a lot of people's toes. I mean, he did it already with the anti-corruption campaign. Guess what? When everybody's corrupt, an anti-corruption campaign isn't an anti-corruption campaign. It's an internal war.
Right.
It's an internal war.
It's a purge.
And it's a purge. And he pissed off a lot of people through that. Now he's obviously he surrounded himself with his posse. However, very recently he came out again and was like, maybe we need another anti-corruption campaign. Which that just says to you that this man is paranoid.
Right.
Which is not surprising at all. If you look at Stalin, if you look at Hitler, if you look at Mao, their paranoia, especially towards the end of their rule, was insane. You know, Mao, if you read the book that his personal doctor wrote, he was sleeping like maybe 3 hours a night, just thinking that assassins were coming all the time. And that's something that could happen to Xi. And it probably, something's going to happen to him if America and Biden can successfully set up a big enough trade zone with our allies that, you know, the thing is, you can't look at Nike and H&M and be like, because of moral and ethical reasons, you should swallow the enormous cost of moving your entire supply chain out of China that you've invested multiple decades into. Right. You can't just be like, because of morality, you should do that. Commerce doesn't work that way. Yeah, they're businesses. You got to be like, listen, we've removed the barriers to entry to Vietnam, to Indonesia. You can move there very cheaply, and you can make it a PR campaign, and America's population will think that you're awesome because you're moving out of China, which is now conducting genocide. I think that is in the future. And I think that we're not far away from seeing companies advertise and be like, we don't suck up to China. Like, I think anti-CCP is going to eventually be a marketing campaign. Right. And I actually have hope. You know, it's a good thing that Trump lost the election, because Trump doesn't give a shit about the American people, the Uyghurs, the Hong Kongers, or anything. He just gives a shit about himself, which is why he wanted that dumbass trade agreement where we would just buy a bunch of agricultural goods instead of actually forcing China to have any real change.
Oh yeah, that phase one deal was
yeah.
a disaster. So speaking of Trumpism, it's funny that you mentioned that. Like, so for instance, like a lot of people argue that, you know, even though Trump is gone, Trumpism exists, right? So in the same way, you have this whole new generation, the younger generation, you know, who haven't experienced Tiananmen Square, you know, and whose parents don't talk to them about the Cultural Revolution, and they don't learn about it, and they're super nationalistic from my understanding.
Yes.
So that's like a sort of like Xi Jinpingism, surviving in them, right? Where they're like, if you go on Twitter, you know, you say, you know, something slightly negative about China, and they just come at you, like, you know, or
Yes.
the Hong Kong protesters in Australia, where they get to get beaten up by like the Chinese students. So we're, you know, like, is there any hope when you have the youth that are kind of brainwashed, and they think
totally
we're brainwashed,
right? So, you know, I don't want to sound narcissistic here, but I always say the American foreign service, the CIA, should try and send my YouTube channel into the Great Firewall, because I think that through humor and some of the philosophical points that I put into my political satire, you know, when you make someone laugh, there's truth there. You know, when you make someone laugh, you guys have like a connection there of some type of truth that they probably didn't even realize existed in them. Like, I've shown some of my Cold War 2020 series episodes to Chinese people that have never once in their lives really thought deeply about their government. And when they see it, they'll laugh, and then they'll be like, "Oh, I shouldn't be laughing." And it's like, no, you should be laughing.
Right.
And
I love that.
I think that, to be honest with you, I'm kind of cynical, and I don't think there's any hope for the world, which is why I decided to say fuck it and just speak out. You know, it is dangerous for me to come out here and online talk about how I think Xi Jinping could be assassinated. You know, he's also one of the most powerful men in the world. But what do we have to lose? I mean, I really think the world is completely screwed if we can't fix this China problem, because, you know, you got environmental problems. I mean, China's overfishing of the seas, and there's no regulation stopping it, is decimating the biodiversity in the oceans. You also have no way of knowing whether they're actually sticking to any pollution guidelines. We have no way. As long as they're not transparent, we will never know. And China and America are the biggest two polluters. So if we don't know what one of the biggest polluters is doing, there's no hope in the environment. And if there's no hope in the environment, then, you know, I'm a 29-year-old guy. What the hell would I have a kid for? So I can birth him into a world where you have a natural disaster once every week. I mean, it's just so, and it's going to get worse. You know, it's going to get much worse, especially if we can't figure out what to do about social media and its fueling of populism.
Right.
You know, we're looking at a fire. I mean, with the house is already on fire.
You mean China's or the U.S.?
I mean the world. I mean, I think the world is in serious trouble. I mean, what happens when you got sea levels rising? So then island states and countries around the border, and these islands just go under. They start to go under. So then you have humongous refugee crises on the borders of developed countries, which will also breed coronavirus, new strands of coronavirus. It'll breed new viruses, which would then also go a long way to fueling populism and fueling people to be like, we can't let the immigrants in.
Right.
They got the virus.
Right.
You already see how bad it is now. It's going to get a lot worse unless we can do something. We got to do something fast.
And what's that something that we're supposed to be doing?
I mean, I'm a comedian and a rapper. So
it's like not up to you.
Do is just like reach out to those youth, the Chinese young people that you're talking about, and just tell them, listen, you're not alone. You're not the crazy one. Everyone around you is actually crazy. You're right. It's a prison.
Yeah. So before I let you go, and it was all insightful, you did mention that you create some really fun content on YouTube, and the way to reach people is through humor. And I completely agree with that. Like, you know, I love Veep, I love satire, I love, you know, all of that, because, you know, watching it isn't so depressing, and you learn a lot, and it's fun to see things through a humorous lens. So, you know, one of the things that drew me in immediately was like the secret to becoming rich and famous in China. right? It's so refreshing and even
Yeah.
cathartic for someone who isn't Chinese to point out these privileges that Caucasians and certain types of
Yeah.
foreigners can make a lot of money or get famous in China infinitely easier than the country of origin, especially in the US. So would you elaborate on your thought and process and your experience even?
Well, yeah, I mean, it came directly from experience. Yeah,
Mm.
I had opportunities like that both in China and when I moved back to LA with media companies here that will want to foster a foreign talent
Mm.
to go on China's TikTok, to go on China's Twitter, which is called Weibo, or to go on China's YouTube, which is called Bilibili,
Mm.
and make videos that back in the day could be as simple as, I'm gonna eat this spicy food, oh my god, it's so spicy, look at me, I'm a white guy, I can't use chopsticks and I'm sweating from the spicy food.
So you're
And
the
then
token
now-
white guy.
Right, which is so frustrating and I hate it so much, but yeah, and I've been they tried to use me to do stuff like that, and
Mm.
I always tell people I'm not sitting up on my like moral high horse saying like I would never do that. I tried to do shit like that. I just was terrible at it. Like, I
Right.
think that if you look at my political satire and other stuff that I've done,
Yeah.
I studied acting. I'm not a bad actor. The problem is when you do stuff like this, you're not acting. They're saying, no, we want you to be
Like a
you,
puppet.
American Lola Farley, and you're going to read this script. And then you're
Uh-huh.
like, Huawei has no relation with the Chinese government, and any foreign government that opposes Huawei will feel the wrath of the Chinese government.
Oh,
It's like,
wow.
Oh, he's
Really?
a white guy, and he said that, so I believe him.
No,
And,
really?
it
Wait,
depends how
is
much
that a
shame you
joke?
have. No, that's it. It's called in Chinese, it's called 崇洋媚外. So it's like this blind admiration of foreigners that's existed since ancient times for whatever reasons. And it is now used for someone like Nathan Rich or Barrett, these two YouTubers that are literally so dumb. Like, I mean, their points that they make in videos have so many holes in their logic. They just commit such obvious logical fallacies.
Mhm.
But Chinese people don't want to see those fallacies. 1, 2, they're not trained to see them. And 3, they're just blinded by the fact that, like, oh, it's a white guy saying the stuff that I want to hear.
Mm.
So now I like it. Now that makes me comfortable because it makes me feel like my country isn't actually going down the toilet. It's actually great. Western media is full of lies. Everything's actually great. It's much easier pill to swallow. And those guys make fortunes. They don't just make
I'm
a lot of money. They
sure.
make
Oh,
fortunes.
I
off
know, I know. Trust
You
me,
know.
I know. So wait, so no, but did they actually like when you mentioned the Huawei example? Is that like something that you're making up, or is that something that's actually like something
No.
you experienced?
Yeah, you get a script that tells the talking points that they would like you to go towards. It might not be exactly like the script. It could be.
Right.
It could be.
Right.
But what it will usually be, it will be like, say that Western media is not fair. Here's an example that you can bring up. And so then you'll have Barrett, he'll be like, I've studied in China for I've lived in China for like 10 years. I don't know why I'm making him Australian. And
Because some of
he's
them
like-
are.
he's
Yeah.
like, I look at Western media and I'll just see that they're so unfair with China. Like, for example, they didn't even bring up this recent technological breakthrough. And he's bringing one example to support his entire argument,
Right.
which is a narrative fallacy. I mean, it's a logical fallacy. It just doesn't work.
Right.
Anybody that's ever cared about, ever studied statistics or ever studied regression analysis or done debate realizes that this is dumb as fuck. But
Yeah.
because Chinese people in the education system in China does not train you to critically think,
Yeah,
they
absolutely.
eat it up. They eat that shit up. And guess
Wow.
what? Barrett's lived in China for over a decade and he doesn't speak Chinese. You know why?
Wow.
Because he doesn't give a fuck about Chinese people, the Chinese country, or Chinese culture. Even though he'll
Right.
say, I love Chinese culture. It's like,
Right,
oh,
it's
really,
about
dude?
the-
What specifically
The
about it?
money.
He doesn't
Right.
care at all. He just got money. So that's why the secret to becoming rich and famous in China, my satire, I grew up watching South Park. I'm not here to like make a PG-13 satire. Like, I'm going hard in the paint. When I'm coming at you, I'm like, full force.
Yeah, no, definitely.
No knowledge, no problem.
So I guess I just wanted to mention two of your videos before I let you go. So there was one where you said, "Change my mind. Taiwan is not part of China." That must have been grueling. So what are the confrontations you got into, and why do you think so many people are so terrified of speaking to you? Is it just because where were you in that video?
Well, I was in San Gabriel Valley, which if you have come to LA.
No, I hosted a concert there when I was a VJ from TV. So.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. That's weird that people were terrified of speaking.
San Gabriel Valley is super duper Chinese, and it is also probably some of the best Chinese food you'll ever get in your life.
Yeah.
But super Chinese, and a lot of the Chinese that are living here still, the ones that are still here, are older generations that came over during China's rise and was investment. A lot of them were investment visas, like investment immigration, I guess it's called.
Yes.
Yeah, sure, whatever it's called. And they have a very outdated view of the Communist Party. One, two, the Communist Party benefited them, so they don't want to criticize it at all.
Oh, sure.
And then three, they also have no ability to critically think. So they didn't really want to debate any of that topic with me. It was just more of you could just say like they were just like, Taiwan 自古以来是中国的领土. They're like, Taiwan's always since ancient times been a part of China. It's like,
and you're like, what?
What do you mean by ancient times?
Yeah.
What do you mean by ancient times? And you never even thought of it was one. But then most of the reaction I got was people running away. And people running away is because China's in another cultural revolution. It's like the Salem witch trials on crack. It's insane.
Right. No, absolutely.
Okay. It's absolutely crazy.
Yeah.
There's no trust.
Right. Yeah. And it seems to me like all of a sudden, China just started coming out and saying, Taiwan's ours. I know they've always thought that, but now they're being very vocal about it, And I just hope that, right? And
why? The question is why, right? In Chinese, they say, 无风不起浪. Without wind, there can be no wave. So in the English equivalent, it's probably like where there's smoke, there's fire. So why does Xi Jinping's CCP become more vocally aggressive about Taiwan?
Why? Too. Was it because of Trump? I'm guessing.
No, I don't. This is my opinion. Obviously, it's not. It can't be a fact. It's my opinion.
No, I'd love to hear it.
It's why does China just do the nationalism? Why do they play the nationalism card ever? It's to divert the population's attention away from their own failures.
Oh, that actually makes
you have to have a fake. You have to have a fake enemy to fight.
That's true. Or else it's like civil war, just like there is in America. We need an external enemy like Russia, Japan, like whatever it is.
Well, that's the problem with Trump's campaign using China as a straw man enemy to divert attention from their own failures, is it's caused the left to not take China seriously. And you have this anti-Asian movement is infiltrated by the CCP. I went to one of these rallies this past weekend, and there is CCP people within the crowd. They pass out signs that the CCP makes. It's like Chinese English, really uncreative signs that blur together Chinese people. And the left, some of these lefties are just too fucking dense to grasp the fact that, dude, the CCP tries to represent the diaspora of Chinese people around the world. And so when people are criticizing China or the Chinese government, they're not criticizing Chinese people. It's not being racist towards Chinese people. Right. It's attacking the most evil government that we have.
Yes, absolutely. So,
but the lefties can't grasp that shit. They can't. They're either too lazy or I don't know what's happening.
Thank you. You're actually one of the first people that that have actually said that. That's not my crazy Republican friends, which I love because I'm a Republican myself.
I'm a libertarian. Legalize drugs, legalize prostitution. I'm not liked by either party.
Right. I'm split down the middle, but I'm a registered Republican. But it just drives me nuts when I read newspaper articles in the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, and just publications that respect, where they were criticizing like Blinken's like performance and say or Biden's like policy toward China. They were saying like, how do we expect to forge like a good relationship with China if we continue this hard rhetoric against them? And it just
Oh my
makes
God,
me
who
want
said that? They should lose their fucking job.
more than one publication, and it got my blood boiling
Insane.
so badly because I'm just like, I'm like, wow, these are the people running like these publications, and then people that are reading these publications, they also are like, you know, internalizing that, and they're thinking, oh, China's not that bad, and like I have my ABC
because Trump
friends.
said it, so he's exaggerated. That's what I think.
Right, and then I have my ABC friends also because they, you know, I escaped from communist China. I've been there, I've lived there, you've lived there, but like, you know, they go to like, you know, China and they're tourists and they, you know, they see like, you know, the beautiful like the Bund, right, in Shanghai or what the Great Wall of China, and they see like all like they have the red carpet rolled out for them, and like they get upset with me and they're just like, China's not that bad, and I'm like, you don't understand. China's like the mafia, all right? So like
that's what I would say. It's the biggest mafia in the world.
It really is. It really is. And Xi Jinping is, I always, you know, kind of like paralleled him to Tony Soprano in the same way that he's never safe, right? He's the guy on the top, but he's never safe. So like, you know, so I you know, they're all very mafia-like, and I think people don't, because we don't talk about the fact that Mao killed 40 million people, right? And we don't talk
could be
about
70
or 70. Who knows what the real number is? We don't even know how many people died in the last coronavirus, right? So like
that's why it's ridiculous that the CCP is coming out and trying to speak out against anti-Asian discrimination. It's like, hold on a second.
Really?
Uyghurs are Asian. Okay, Uyghurs are Asian, and you got over 1 million of them in labor camps. Okay, you also COVID-19. The thing about dumbass rednecks that like are just like, well, it's the Chinese virus, and I see these Asians around me, so I'm gonna go take out revenge on the Asians. It's like, dude, the Russian people. It'd be like blaming the Russians for Chernobyl. It's like, dude, the Russian people didn't want Chernobyl to happen. Chinese people aren't sitting there being like, I really hope a virus leaks from this fucking lab and ruins my life. It's not, has nothing to do with Chinese people. It's the Chinese government. It's the Chinese government. It's a very easy distinction. The only problem is our last president, Trump, was too ignorant of the CCP's way of tricking people to realize that he shouldn't have called it the China virus. He should have called it the CCP virus. If he did that, boom, dude, you're killing it. You're fucking killing it.
That's genius. You're right.
But
That's
he didn't.
That's an amazing marketing ploy, because then you mark the enemy.
Yeah, you mark them for the whole world, and guess what? Left, right, we'd all get behind that.
Yes.
We'd all get behind it.
Oh God, that is.
And instead, he said China virus because Trump's kind of stupid. He's just not the smartest dude ever. He's just,
now that you're saying this, it's getting me upset.
It's funny, but the thing that you just said about the left and those media publications, you know, I think that what I see from like social justice warriors in the extreme left is they want to get a sense of moral superiority for the least effort. Like, so if I am trying to say we should not demonize the Chinese government, I will feel good about myself and I will feel woke. And you don't, and they don't look into the details. They don't look into the nuance.
Right. No.
That's why I fucking hate them too. That's why I hate social justice warriors.
No, I completely agreed. And I just wish they had a better understanding of China. And I'm just like, listen to the people who come from China. Listen to the people who've lived in China. Don't just like form your own, like impose your own, like, you know, I guess like Christian or, you know, like just like, you know, kind-hearted, like, I'm not saying they're not kind-hearted like in China, but I'm just saying like, again, bleeding heart Americans, not even liberals. We're just bleeding heart Americans, right? So
it's so funny. You're bringing up a very good point here. The Judeo-Christian morality and ethical system is a base for a lot of our behavior, even if you realize they're not. You know, I'm an atheist, but like, I still recognize that the value system of Western society, a lot of it, if not all of it, was based on Judeo-Christian morals. Absolutely. And China doesn't have that, obviously. Instead, they have Confucianism, which is definitely much more about subservience to authority and listen to what I say, don't say anything else. But if you want to know about the Communist Party, you know, Chernobyl was fucked up, but the Russian Communist Party, or the Soviet Union afterwards, a lot of Russians sacrificed their lives to make sure it didn't get any worse. And the Soviet Union got all their resources together to make sure that it wasn't going to ruin the entire continent, right? And they did a lot of heroic things. There was a lot of heroes, Russian heroes, in the wake of the Chernobyl disaster.
Right.
And if you look at what the Communist Party did after COVID, that is all you need to know about them. What did they do? They kept it silent for as long as they could, which was a pretty long time.
Right.
And at the same time, hoarded resources from their neighbors. And then once they finally let the whole world know, also they shut down the train system coming out of Wuhan, but then there was a period where they didn't set out planes leaving China and Wuhan. And then once it became an international pandemic, they resold fake or not up to standard medical supplies to the same neighbors or other countries. Like, that is what you need to know about the Communist Party. They don't give a fuck about your ethics or morals. They are there in it to win it, man. They are there in it to win it.
They really are, and I've been saying this ever since I've come to America. I'm like, you have to Americans have to understand that a lot of the Chinese identity is wrapped around not liking, hating, or disliking Americans. Like, it consumes their thoughts. Like, America lives rent free in their minds all the time. Americans don't have that issue. We don't go around thinking about China all day. You know?
And that's the funniest thing that the Chinese Communist Party tries to throw on their audience is America and the West is doing this because they're afraid of China's rise.
Right.
They're afraid of China's rise. Like, no. Okay, I learned Chinese for almost half my life now. And for most of it, Americans are capitalists first, Americans second. So Americans, when they first learned I was doing Chinese, they were like, dude, you can make so much money. That's awesome. China is going to kill it, dude. You're doing great. Like, they were excited about China's rise. Nobody's there like, but if our GDP isn't as high as theirs, then how am I going to get an erection at night? I don't know what to do.
Right.
Like, ridiculous. It's such a ridiculous line of logic. But the CCP sells it and the Chinese government eats it. I mean, the Chinese people eat it up, which is what my Cold War 2020 first episode was about. That was the line that
I can't wait to watch that.
It's only a minute and a half long. So.
so I know you gotta go. I just have one last question for you. So what should our viewers expect from you next? What's in the works for you now? And you think you'll ever go back to China one day?
Well, if I ever go back to China, my Chinese followers tell me that the day I go back to China, I will return a historical figure, which I think is pretty interesting. But I can't go back to China until the Communist Party falls. That's for sure. I will get arrested as soon as I get off the plane. And it would
do you think that'll ever happen?
I'm not going to go back to China. Do I think the Communist Party is going to fall? Probably. The question is not if it's going to fall, it's when. I think it could be like 20 years. You know, it could be a while. But it depends on a lot of external factors. One of them being what's Xi Jinping's health like. You know, there's some signs that point to the man as not being a very healthy guy. And I'm sure that you know this. Chinese men in his age group, you know, don't live the healthiest lives. They don't eat or the healthiest food, and they don't really take care of that well, their physical body. However, he'll have the best organs that the black market can buy.
Yeah.
But for me next, I've invented a character called MC Lur, which I have a few videos on. And MC Lur is like one of my favorite comedians is Sacha Baron Cohen. So he has Borat and he has, Ali G. Right. And so MC Lur is a American bro, American frat bro, which I also am, that is super down to be the CCP's tool. Like, he really wants to make money by bowing down to the CCP. And so the next video I have is MC Lur's got a song coming. You know, give me some of that R&B or digital currency.
And are your viewers more Chinese, or do Americans watch it, or other countries as well? Like, what's your main demographic?
It's like 40% international, 60% Chinese, I'd say, probably.
Well, that's pretty cool. Okay.
I definitely have a very internationally and diverse channel, which I take a lot of pride in. I'm all about that.
No, definitely. Your channel's awesome. And I'll include the link to your channel in the description, as well as to your Twitter, any social media pages that you want me to include. So
It's all the same thing. L-E-L-E Farley. If it wasn't for freaking Legally Pawns, I would own L-E-L-E. As soon as you put that in Google, it'd be like, oh, you want Lola Farley. But Lily Pawns, I don't even know who the hell that is. Some singer.
Oh, goodness gracious. Well, whatever.
Screwed up my algorithms.
No worries. Hey, people are still finding you and loving you. So we're looking forward to everything you have to do next. This is an awesome conversation. We hope to have you back next time. Maybe we'll get Lale to come and we could do a 3-person panel. Who knows?
Yeah, Lale is the man. Lale helped me out so much. He was the guy to first forward my first video to really get things going.
Hey, he's saying the same thing about you. He's saying that you're the man. And if, not for you, he couldn't be doing what he's doing. So you got some bromance going on there.
That's so nice.
Yeah,
well,
we
need more bromance in the anti-CCP movement, including with you. I'm very thankful that you've had me on your show today, for sure. Yeah. And it's important to be united on this anti-CCP front, because let me tell you something about the Mandarin anti-CCP movement.
Oh,
it is splintered and fractured as hell.
It really is. Right. It really it's like day. Civil war over there. It's crazy.
Yeah, dude, it's crazy.
They can't agree on like a common set of facts. It's really upsetting. So
I think Trump was a big factor there. Now he's gone. I think it might get better.
It definitely is. Yeah. But yeah, fingers crossed, Biden. Even though,
doing this is brave. And people that don't interact with the Mandarin internet might not know this, but a lot of it is pretty chauvinistic. And I'm not going to say that like all Chinese is that, but like I said, traditional culture does have Confucianism, which Confucianism emphasizes 三从四德, which means a wife is to obey her father when she's younger, her husband when she gets married, and then if her husband dies, she is to listen to her son. That is a big part of traditional culture.
I'm American.
Well, it's important that when you do stuff like this, you are putting yourself, as a woman online, putting your opinion out there, especially about political matters, you're going to get attacked much harder than I could ever imagine. So I respect the shit out of you for doing it.
No, I respect you too. You're doing great things, and I hope we can continue doing great things together and collaborate and do everything we can do to hopefully one day bring the CCP down.
Get a really nuanced message out there with like both the left and right calling us names.
Right. I'm saying I'm gonna get skewered for that. So, but that's just my true feelings.
Fuck it.
Yeah.
Who cares?
Alrighty. So it was wonderful speaking with you, and we hope you join us here next week on Liberated Panda. Bye, guys.
Peace out. 再见.
Right alongside of our guy, stuck in our times, trying to make a living singing polyglot rhymes. As daily I'm saved by sweet little ladies, dancing brides in their mid to late 80s. Sorry but darling, 你来自哪里 OMG, oh my god, 中国话邦记，来自美国南方的可不是白垃圾，德国萨斯牛仔。